March 2025. It is officially 1 year since we started Workplace Culture. So excited. I do invite you to go onto YouTube and look up Workplace Culture and listen to last March, which was 2024. We had a dear friend of mine, Nicole London, who's a life coach and amazing person for insight and wisdom. We had her on the show talking about some of the challenges that women face. And this episode, we're going to have Jacquie Abrams, who is a friend of mine that I met on LinkedIn, who's doing such powerful work against toxic workplaces. My name is Dawn Wood, and I have been in corporate America since the late 90s. I've also been a professional singer, musician, and so a lot of the things that I've experienced, unfortunately, in my career, whether it be in the music business or in corporate America, have been very similar. I've witnessed and experienced discrimination. I have witnessed and experienced sexual harassment. I have witnessed and experienced bullying and toxicity in the workplace. Unfortunately, many women tend to kind of go with the power and the money and don't really seem to, unfortunately, support their fellow sisters in the workplace. And that's what we're here to push and to evangelize. And so with that, I would like to turn it over to my good friend, Priscilla Yeager, who has been instrumental in helping me with this podcast as my partner, and also who is a yoga coach, website. She designs websites. She teaches people how to do websites. She is absolutely amazing, and I would like to turn it over to her.
Thank you, Dawn. Yeah, amazing. It's been a year since we've started this little podcast. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's here. I am Priscilla, and yeah, it's been a minute since I've been in the aerial yoga world. I've kind of pivoted off of that journey and have started really with the blessings of 2020, having to close my business down. I was blessed to turn my double garage into my home studio, and that's now where I do sound healing events, and really realizing that people just need some time to like reset their nervous system, calm, chill, reset. And so that's my big passion now, is just allowing people to come, lay back, receive. I do specialty events, and I'm really like into the moon. So we do events mainly around the new moon and the full moon. And as far as my big passion now, I just recently did a whole 7-day event called Launch Your Light, which you can get on my website still at sillywellness.com. And it's just 7 days of teaching people how to really reconnect back to their creativity, which so many of us are blocked from our creative energy. And it's especially for women, like we got to recreate, get in touch with our own selves, get in touch with spirit, and how to start our business and move in the direction of our dreams. So this is something I've been helping people navigate, is how do we get unstuck and really move in the direction of like the business they want to start, and just get them some wind underneath their wings and get lift off. And that usually is a block with technology. We usually let technology block us from all of our dreams. So I am here to help people, like when they have those roadblocks. It's how Dawn and I started this podcast. It's like, just start. Let's just start. Let's get out of the way of all the technical stuff and just put out the Zoom link, pick the calendar date, and let's get it going. We have messages to get out into the world. Let's do it. So yeah, I'm really passionate about helping people move beyond those technical roadblocks. And especially now more than ever, we have a voice, and our voice matters. And it's time for us to step up and share, especially women. So I love that we're doing this again around Women's Month and honoring women and celebrating the magic that we all have. So thank you all for being here and for listening. And I'll pass it back to you, Dawn.
Thanks, Priscilla. Appreciate it. And just as I have this weird like angel light coming across my face that me and Priscilla tried figuring it out before the podcast. I closed all the windows and everything, but I'm just going to consider it my angel is around me right now. So if you're wondering why I look a little foggy, that's why. And so, as we mentioned, it is International Women's Month. March is Women's History Month, the time to celebrate women's contributions, to raise awareness of women's rights, sexual harassment, and discrimination that is still very much alive in the workplace today. And International Women's Month is recognized internationally. So, this is, believe it or not, the latest survey that I found online. I know last year we did in the summertime, we did a episode specifically geared towards sexual harassment. And I had dug into some numbers from the EEOC that said that like 93% of women had some sort of sexual harassment happen to them at some point in their career. And so I think those numbers are a little more accurate. We also have to take into factor that many people don't report it. And so this particular survey found that 42% of employed women overall, and actually 53% of Black women have reported sexual discrimination at work. And that could be just based on sex or sexual discrimination in itself, earning less money, doing the same exact job as a man. And so that brings us to our guest. So I met Jacquie on LinkedIn, and Jacquie's very brave and has had the experiences that she has had make mine pale in comparison. As traumatic as I think that mine have been, what she has endured is absolutely heartbreaking. And so she is a global toxic workplace consultant and employee advocate, and an international best-selling and award-winning author of Hush Money and Surviving in a Toxic Workplace. I do hope that you go on, at the very least, go on LinkedIn and follow or friend Jacquie. But I also would recommend that you go and buy her book, which is on Amazon. One of the things that really stood out to me from Jacquie's writing is that in a toxic workplace, the E in email stands for evidence. And that's something that really just hit me in the head like a hammer, because I have always had, no matter, from this experience to this experience to this experience, whether it was in the entertainment business or in corporate America, I always felt like, oh, I have hope for the next time. It's going to be better. And I never documented because I always had faith and trust in my employer, in my boss, in my HR department. And even in the last experience that I had at my last job, where there was no HR, which should have been a huge red flag for me, in asking the questions and being told, oh, well, we don't really need it. We're all mostly working remote. So you legally, you don't need an HR department. And then seeing all the things that happened, and then kicking myself afterwards for not documenting in email, in writing, everything. And then seeing people after me, and the advice that I gave them was, the thing that I did not do was document. And even when I called attorneys, the attorneys, which blew me away, said that I should have been videotaping, which I didn't even think was legal to do if somebody didn't give their permission. So, and then I always kind of beat myself up like, I shouldn't go in. It's like I'm trying to entrap somebody. I'm here to do my job, not to trap somebody. But at the same time, in a toxic workplace, something has to be done, or else nothing's going to get done. It's just going to continue to get worse and worse. And so this is the book that I was talking about. That is Jacquie's book, called Surviving in a Toxic Workplace. It is on Amazon. Jacquie, I believe this is ebook and hard copy, right?
Yes, it's an ebook, paperback, and hardcover.
Wonderful. Great. So you can get it and read it in your Kindle, which I have done, or you can get it in a hard copy. And so with that, Jacquie, I'm going to turn it over to you to just talk about how you got here, how you got to the point that you were writing a book, and now you're consulting. You've got a consulting business to consult those employers that actually have integrity and want to do something, so that they are on the right side of this instead of participating in a toxic workplace. And so I'm going to give you the floor to talk about your experience and what led you here.
Very good. And just to clarify, I actually work with both employers on the employer side, but the majority of my work lately has been on the employee side, actually helping employees that are in toxic workplaces navigate those waters and exit or leave on their own terms with their pockets full instead of
Wow.
empty-handed.
I wish I had met you about 2 years ago.
Yes, yes. And, you know, like you, I am not an attorney. I cannot give legal advice, but I can say that I have a strong track record of getting dozens and dozens and dozens of people those six-figure settlements because I am good at what I do. And one of the concepts that I teach in my book is to be clear and confident when you toot your own horn. So toot toot.
Okay, so Jackie, how did you come to the place where you decided to write a book and to start your own consulting firm?
Well, let me start off by saying that I never really knew the cost of being a Black woman in corporate America. I didn't know the price that I would pay with my dignity and my fundamental rights as a human being. Literally, just to have a job that was in you know, a high income sector, you know, a job that gave me a satisfying career path and gave me and my family, who we were raised in poverty, a chance to live the American dream. But I can tell you, looking back at my career, which spanned nearly 20 years, so I just quite made it over 17 years. I can tell you that if I knew then what I know now, maybe I would have done things differently before taking that job that traumatized and nearly destroyed me. You know, maybe I would have bleached my dark skin to make it lighter, or removed my long dookie braids to straighten my hair. Maybe I would have bought blue contacts to hide my brown eyes and got a nose job with a butt reduction too. You know, do everything I shoulda, woulda, coulda done to look less like me and more like them, you know, just to fit into a mold I had no part in creating. After I thought about that, I said, no, I know me. And even if I could go back in time to that fateful day that literally changed my life in the worst way, I wouldn't change a thing because I'm the strong, beautiful Black woman God created me to be. You know, dark skin, dookie braids, big butt and all. And so that is kind of where, you know, everything began for me. Let me just tell you that when I entered into my career in higher education, I was a pillar of confidence. I was a 6 foot tall Janet Jackson lookalike with legs for miles, a warrior spirit burning deep inside me, and with a smile that could sink a thousand ships. And it wasn't until I got into this environment that I realized that, you know, what I thought I was going to do with my skills and abilities were no match to the toxic leaders who didn't realize or notice anything about me other than the fact that I was a Black woman. And so, you know, when they started targeting me in this toxic environment that I found myself in, they inspired others in the organization to conspire with them. And so, what started out as being one leader targeting me quickly turned into a lot of people. You know, some people refer to it as workplace mobbing. So I found myself dealing with a mob of people who were all working together to destroy the record that I had created in this particular environment, where I was getting promotion after promotion, not because of favoritism or privilege, but because of the way that I approached my job. You know, as someone in poverty, when you finally get a job that can allow you to have things that I didn't have, like, real cookies instead of dog biscuits that I would eat, or, carpet that was all the same color instead of the carpet that we had sewn together from the scraps of carpet we found in the trash behind carpet stores, and, real toilet tissue in the bathroom instead of the torn up pages from the Yellow Pages phone book that we would put in our bathroom in place of toilet tissue, or the mystery meat. I mean, the dreaded mystery meat that would show up every so often in our kitchen sink with its teeth, fur, and claws still intact. That mom swore was beef, but even at my young age, I knew this is not beef. And so when you finally get a job that allows you to take this life of nothing that you've been used to and finally have something, you're willing to work as hard as it takes to ensure that you never have to go back into poverty. And so that's the way I approached this opportunity that I had through a temp agency to get into higher education. What I wasn't prepared for was the toxic leaders. And so they mercilessly targeted me. They inspired others, like I told you, to conspire against them. And it was so ridiculous to me that the people that they could inspire to turn on me, HR. HR was always someone I thought was there for the employee, an employee advocate. But in a toxic environment, after I ran from company to company to company to company, I realized HR is not there to protect the employee from their toxic leaders. They're there to protect their toxic leaders from the employee and thereby protect the company. And so HR was the first to be inspired. My own employees, while I was in chemotherapy with my mom once a week as she was fighting for her life, dealing with stage 4 colon cancer, while I was away, my toxic leader was meeting with one of my employees and offering him my job. And so this employee was then incentivized to track my comings and goings, make up false lies and falsehoods about me harassing this person, making false accusations that I'm doing unethical things. And so, you're dealing with this toxic leader who's targeting you. HR won't help you. Your employee is trying to set you up. But it was other Black people who could be inspired to conspire with this toxic leader because they didn't want that leader turning their lens on them. And so I've got Black people, the people that you would think would have been my biggest supporters, who were targeting me. And I want to be clear, in a toxic workplace, anybody can be a toxic leader. It may surprise you to know that some of my most horrific bosses, my horrific leaders, were actually Black women who upheld a white supremacist ideology. And so you're dealing with all of these things, coupled with the fact that when they decide to pull the rug from under you, there is a playbook that they're using to be successful. And that is what I talk about in my book. There is a playbook. So no matter who you are or what your walk of life is, no matter what skin you live in, no matter what your background, they use the same playbook. And it's very effective if you can't recognize the signs. And so in my case, I ran from this job, and so I ran to the next job, and now I'm starting all over again. But now in this next job, okay, yes, I'm getting a big salary. I'm earning 6 figures. I've got this great senior director title. But they never intended for me to be successful long term because they do things that are under the radar that don't easily fit into a discrimination bucket. And this is part of the playbook. So the first thing you do is you give this person an inadequate training. You withhold information that you know this new employee needs to be effective in doing their job. So you withhold that vital information. So now they're working with partial information, but in my case, they went the extra mile and they gave me the wrong information about how to do my job. So they were steering me the wrong way from the very beginning. But on top of that, the equipment. I've got 92 clients in my consultancy right now that I am helping or have helped. And no matter what job they have, they all have computer or equipment issues. And so you can't get into your email right away. So you can't get emails that are being sent. You don't have access to the share drive. You don't have access to the intranet. Now, in my particular case, they gave me a computer system that was older than dirt. Okay, I'm pretty sure to this day that they found the computer system that they gave me in some archaeological dig somewhere. I kid you not, because it was slower than dirt. It was freezing all day long. So by the end of the day, I've rebooted this computer, 6 or 7 times. So every time you reboot, you're losing valuable time to get your work done. So you're not able to keep up with the quality of work that this person over here in the same job is doing because you've been given the wrong information or limited information about how to do your job. You can't keep up with the quantity of work because the equipment you are using is subpar. And you're putting in IT ticket after IT ticket. And, for at least a week or two, you can't be functional. You can't do your job. So now you're behind the ball and you're not keeping up with the quality or quantity of work. And your leaders are documenting your shortcomings. They're documenting the mistakes that you're making because you haven't been trained properly. They're documenting your slow performance because you've got these equipment issues. And when you want to talk to someone about what you're experiencing, they say that you're unfit for the position or, you are making excuses. And so that's one example of how a toxic workplace thrives. Now, all of these things are happening right out of the gate and at the same time. So then you add in what I call the workhorse, okay? The workhorse is the employee who is now dealing with, performance issues because they're not keeping up with the quantity, dealing with quality issues because they're making mistake. And then this toxic leader starts piling a lot of extra work on their back under the bullet, all other duties as assigned. So now you're being buried in a mountain of work and you never get a break. These attacks come every single day. So it's designed to break the strongest employee, like a horse. This leader is determined and eager to break and tame. And it does just incredible damage to your mental state. And so for me, living and working in this environment and the looming threat that I could go spiraling back into poverty if I don't come up with a way to figure out how to do my job, the stress is enormous when you have that kind of weight on you. And so for me, my body erupted in 100 pounds of weight gain in less than a year. And it wasn't that I was overeating. It was just the stress I was having. I was drowning on one side. My mom is dying from what became terminal cancer. And on the other side, my toxic leader is using my mom's cancer diagnosis as the spark to ramp up her efforts against me and pull me out of my job when she knows I need it the most. And so this is the environment many employees find themselves navigating when they find themselves targeted. I have clients from all walks of life. I have transgender clients. I have clients with disabilities. I have an alarming number of clients who are experiencing ageism, and they're all finding themselves out of work. In my case, my career was derailed 5 different times. And each time my career was derailed and I found myself out of a job, even though I was highly competent, I was highly qualified, I approached my job from an exceptional standpoint, I was fully dedicated, but I couldn't keep a job. And, you know, I couldn't build up enough savings to live on because they kept forcing me out of my position. And so each time it happened, my daughters and I would live off of the little bit of savings that we had accumulated. But then when that ran out, we'd be homeless. I mean, I'd find myself homeless with these 2 young girls. And, it really did a lot of damage to that confidence that I had. Now I'm 100 pounds heavier. People in my workplace are secretly calling me Jabba the Hutt in Spanish as I walk by. It was just a horrifying, mortifyingly difficult experience. And then I've got these 2 young girls, and I'm living out of my car. But here's the thing. Although my career was repeatedly derailed, I never walked away from a single toxic job empty-handed because I actually knew how to fight. I was exceptional at fighting back. But I was fighting back from homeless because I didn't pay attention to the signs that were there that were telling me you're about to be fired, because there are signs. Let me give you an example. There are warning signs that your career is heading in the wrong direction, and then there are termination warning signs. All of these things are in this book. And if you see the signs, because the pattern is the same, that's how I was so effective at going back and fighting these companies. And I got multiple 6-figure settlements from these toxic organizations. But unfortunately, in many cases, I waited until they had forced me out. And so we decided to do these books and to open our consultancy and to teach these master classes so that employees can have a chance at fighting that company while they are still employed and while their income is still intact. So, for example, in my book, I take you through the entire playbook from start to finish. I give you the warnings you should look out for, and I do it through my experience. So you get immersed into what happened to me. You find out all of the mistakes that I made along the way so that you don't keep making them. You find out the enormous amount of trauma that I suffered, because I suffered enormously. But then you find out the strategy. What did I do to combat this particular part of the playbook and turn the table on these toxic leaders so that I could get multiple 6-figure settlements? And so just to give you an example, a termination warning looks like this. If you are in a toxic workplace and your leader starts slowly removing your duties, okay, that is a termination warning flag. That is a big red flag that within 30 to 60 days, you are going to be wrongfully terminated. And so my book lays out all the warning signs, including, what happens when you have a change in leadership, because you could have a 16-year career. And if you find yourself promoted or through an organizational restructure, for example, reporting to a toxic leader, that toxic leader can unravel your decorated 16-year career in a matter of months. And if you don't know the signs, you will find yourself, as many of my clients have found, out of a job because you didn't recognize the signs that were leading up to that moment, like being excluded from meetings. That's a big termination sign, okay? Having consultants all of a sudden hired under the guise of working with your CEO, but this consultant who's supposed to be doing data analysis with the CEO is lurking around you like some kind of looky-loo, asking questions about you and your job. You have a consultant that's a little too interested in what you do. That is a termination warning flag. This is what toxic workplaces do. They hire these consultants so they can learn the ropes without you suspecting that they're there to replace you. And then when they terminate you, or they say your position is being eliminated due to a restructure, that consultant is waiting in the wings, ready to slide into your position and take it over. So that's basically how I got to this point. I wanted to give folks a fighting chance while they're still employed. And so when people seek me out, if they haven't already been terminated, I know how to take quick measures to stop that toxic leader and that organization in their tracks.
Thank you, Jackie. I have a question for you. What are your feelings about? I know that the EEOC is designed, to help get involved. However, my own personal experience in the Seattle area is that they claimed, and this was back in 2023, that they didn't have enough employees,
Mm-hmm.
and the person who would work on your case would be replaced or gone in a month, and somebody else is in charge of your case, and then somebody else is in charge of your case, and then they finally tell you that they don't have enough people, and it's like, what? Okay, what's the point then?
So here's the deal, okay? There are many things that separate the work I do from the work that traditional employment attorneys would do, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And my methods are designed to motivate that organization to settle with you or me or whoever, okay, before an EEOC investigation ever has to take place, okay?
Okay.
So that's what makes my methods highly effective. But in order to motivate that company, because think about it, my first book series is called Hush Money for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Companies will only pay you hush money if they have something to hide, okay? They will pay you hush money to buy your silence.
Mm-hmm.
But to guarantee your silence, they're going to give you this enormous amount of money if you've set them up the right way, the way that I teach my clients how. And they will pay you this enormous amount of money to buy your silence. But to guarantee your silence, they're going to make you sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement that says, okay, by us giving you, this six-figure settlement, you cannot tell anybody what happened to you in our organization.
Mm-hmm.
And that works for the most part, which is why there's never been a set of books like mine that exist. And there's not another set of books like mine that exist in the world anywhere. My books are one of a kind because I actually teach you how to take these companies down. Now, how did I do that if they make you sign an NDA? Well, I took their their big six-figure settlements, okay? And I signed their NDA. And then I came up with another way to still tell the world what happened to me and teach them what I did. And so in my books, in order to accomplish this without putting myself in legal harm's way, I created a character that I call Ebony. And it's through the eyes of Ebony that you get to see and feel and smell my circumstances in a real and authentic way. But my methods are designed to set you up so that you know how to strategize and adopt the E in email stands for evidence, okay? That's one of your best weapons. It's one of the best weapons of this arsenal of weapons that I am teaching you to create in this toxic environment. And so if you use the E in email stands for evidence, you're not just documenting when things are bad, you're documenting everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know, what we were talking about off camera is that many people miss that opportunity to convert all of those verbal compliments that you're getting when you start this new job or you go into this new position that you've been promoted into, and everybody's giving you these great verbal compliments. Many people miss that opportunity to document that verbal conversation. And so when you then find yourself reporting to a toxic leader, the number one thing that they're going to do to get you from hired to fired is they're going to paint this narrative, paint this picture that you all of the sudden have become incompetent. You've been doing your job fabulously for years, but now all of the sudden you are incompetent. And in order to accomplish that, they enlist help. That's where they inspire others to conspire with them. And so you've got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you document it all. And it's not just enough. You know, most people make the mistake of thinking, I can just take notes and that's going to be enough, because notes are great. A daily log of things that are happening is great. But if that daily log is not accompanied by tangible evidence that you actually sent to the person that you're saying did this to you, then this comes down to a he said, she said, they said story. And the employer does not have to prove their innocence. You have to prove their guilt. And you can't do that without tangible evidence. And so the EEOC was never an issue for me because I never had to get to the point where the EEOC would do an investigation. That company was willing to mediate because they knew the strength of the case that I had put together against them. And I'll be honest with you, no company, toxic or not toxic, wants the looming threat of the EEOC or the state civil rights agency gaining access to their records and their data through an investigation. They would rather pay the employee off because they have deep pockets, because they have insurance policies that cover this sort of thing, okay? So they've got the money and they would rather pay you off and buy your silence rather than go that route. But if you haven't convinced that employer that your case is strong or that your case is solid, they will call your bluff. And that's when you find yourself in the middle of an EEOC investigation that has the potential to turn the way yours did. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And great point. And I think, again, that is the mistake that I personally made, and I know a lot of other people make as well, is that feeling like, I'm here to do a job, not collect data in order to protect myself. However, you are your only advocate at the end of the day.
Yes.
You are your only advocate.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And one of the things that you mentioned, I think that is also very powerful and unfortunate, is that we as women assume that women over us have our backs.
Yes.
And that is not true. And that women under us will also have our backs. There's this, in the corporate world, it's like the snatching of, who can get ahead, and the backbiting and backstabbing, instead of women together standing united. Because at the end of the day, all of us have experienced one or many of the discrimination, ageism, sexual harassment, toxic bullying. We've all experienced it, but yet we all don't stand up together in the workplace and go, look, we're not tolerating this.
Exactly. You are absolutely right. And so that's what makes my book series so powerful, is it actually puts you into the shoes of a racial discrimination victim in my case. But the strategies that are used can be used regardless of whatever type of discrimination that person is experiencing. And so that's what brings, clients from all walks of life and even other countries. I have clients in the UK, Ireland, Australia, Canada. I just had someone contact me from India and schedule
Wow.
a consultation. And so that's what makes my consultancy so unique. I
Hmm.
have never, I've gotten 5 different settlements during my career in higher education, big ones. And
Hmm.
I never set foot in a courtroom ever.
Wow.
That's the other thing that makes my methods uh, different from an attorney. Attorneys love to go to court. They
Right.
enjoy lawsuits. I mean, but I've never been a fan of lawsuits. I've never been a fan of going to court. And I'll give you a perfect example of why I don't do this. I get these companies to settle with me before I ever have to go into a courtroom. And so there was a case, this was back, and you can Google this because it's all over the internet. There was a case that started around the 2019 to 20 timeframe. There was a Black woman by the name of Jennifer Harris who sued FedEx in a lawsuit. Okay. Jennifer Harris was a decorated salesperson. She was actually their top salesperson. She was exceptional at her job at FedEx. And she, did very, very well, received all kinds of awards and, accolades and kudos and recognition for the outstanding job she did. Now, it appears that as she was making her way through, growing in her career, she found herself reporting to a toxic leader. So there's that change in leadership. And this toxic leader began unraveling her career and painting her as incompetent and telling her that, she needs to, quit doing as well as she doing, just really trying to diminish her light and her shine that she had achieved in this organization. When she reported this toxic leader to HR, and you know how I feel about HR and toxic workplaces. Okay, I've dedicated a whole chapter to HR in this book. But of course, HR didn't protect her, and that left her vulnerable to more retaliation. Okay, so she gets retaliated against, and then she finds herself wrongfully terminated. And the environment that she was working in was incredibly hostile. It was incredibly toxic. And so I'm sure, okay, that FedEx probably offered her a settlement, okay? Because remember, companies have deep pockets and they have insurance policies, but she didn't want that settlement. She wanted to make an example of FedEx. She wanted the world to know what they did to her. And she knew that the potential of her collecting more if she got an attorney and did a lawsuit was greater than what you can get in most cases with a settlement, okay? So she actually hired one of the best law firms in Texas. I mean, this law firm is, top of their game, spectacular. And they took it to court. So when you file a lawsuit, your court date is set, which is about a year out, okay? Because there's a lot that goes on in between. There's interrogatories, there's depositions, there's all sorts of things. And so, year later, she has her day in court. Now, because it's easier to prove retaliation than it is to prove discrimination, the jury said that there was not enough evidence to validate the discrimination that she said she was experiencing. But they did say that it was very, very clear that once she reported it to HR, that they retaliated. So there was clear proof of retaliation. And so this jury awarded Jennifer Harris $366 million as an award. Okay. $366 million. And it's all over the internet. You can Google it. Now, that sounds great, right? Jennifer's happy. The law firm is happy because they're going to get 45% once a court date is established. They get almost half of that, and everybody's happy, right? This is why I don't do courts. I don't do lawsuits. FedEx says, we're not going to pay that. We appeal. Okay. So they appealed the jury's award and the verdict. So then it goes to the appellate court, right? So it goes to the appellate court, appeals court. Okay. The appellate judge upholds the ruling, says there's very clear evidence of retaliation. So we're going to uphold this ruling. FedEx says, we appeal again. Okay. So every time they appeal, it pushes that court date out. So now you're waiting about another year. And during that time, you don't get any access to that money at all. You don't get a dime of it. So now it's tied up in appellate court again. So now it's at the second level. Okay. The judge upholds the ruling again, says there's clear evidence of retaliation. What do you think FedEx did?
Appealed it again.
They appealed it again because they get 3 appeals. Okay. So now you're waiting another year. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
You're waiting another year, and it goes to the judge, and the judge says, I uphold this ruling. There is very clear evidence of retaliation, but I'm not going to give you $366 million. So we're going to drop that down. Okay. So it ended up getting dropped down to $120,000 in compensatory damages and $1 million in punitive damages. So from $366 million all the way down to that. Now,
wow.
Keep in mind, she has an attorney. She's got a law firm who's getting 45% of that.
Right.
And then the remaining amount is then taxed, okay, by the IRS.
Right.
So it took her nearly 5 years. Okay. Now, take away the punitive, the compensatory, okay, $120,000. Okay. It took her 5 years to walk away with less than I can get in 7 to 14 days if I work directly with the organization. Because when I work directly with the organization, there's no attorney to split my money with. I get to keep it all. Okay.
Right.
And because there's no middleman, okay, and I know how to negotiate my own amounts and punitive damages, which are not taxed, okay, which are untaxed to me, I can get that in 7 to 14 days after the revocation period expires. And so that's why a lot of people seek me out, because my methods are designed to motivate that company to settle with you. Okay, so you don't have to go to court. In many cases, you don't have to go through a full-blown EEOC investigation. And there's nobody to split your money with, because I charge a one-time fee on the front end, but when you get your settlement, it's yours to keep.
Less of a headache.
What was that?
I said much less of a headache.
Yes, much less of a headache, and it allows you to move on. You can't get closure if you're tied up for years in something.
Right.
You need that closure. And so when you get that lump sum, it allows you to rebuild your life like I did, walk away from corporate America or whatever country you are working in with your head held high. Okay. And most importantly, you can start that healing process. Okay. You can't move on if you are living a lifetime of regret, knowing that you did nothing and that these people, they're entertaining themselves by what they did to you.
Right.
And they're taking that salary that you needed to provide for your family, and they're promoting themselves on a job well done by getting you out
Absolutely.
of your position. Remember that warrior spirit I said I had?
Yes.
Even when I was homeless, that fire within me burned bright, and I just didn't have it in me to walk away. I became their worst nightmare. And when I saw them go back and deal with the people, because they may have deep pockets, but when they have to tap into that insurance policy, guess what happens to their insurance rates?
Right. They go
Mhm.
sky high.
And so they don't take that, they actually frown upon that. And so they go back and they deal with the leaders that caused that big mess. And it was satisfying to me. I call it my popcorn moment. That was satisfying to me to watch these people who did their best to drive me out of my position lose theirs and feel what I felt when I now have no income.
Thank you, Jackie. I
Mhm.
think we're going to move on to our roundtable discussion.
Okay.
And so I do see that that again has raised her hand. So
Yeah, I
let's just
just wanted to add something, Jackie. That was
yes.
awesome, but I wanted to say something. I had a friend actually went through all going to lawsuit, because of sexual harassment. And since she was in one of the higher positions, and then she was doing like a like more, she was in sales and she was earning commissions.
Mhm.
And because she was in that position, she had this base salary and she was earning commission during that time as well. So once she went through this, and then she was waiting for that 1 year till the court time comes up, she could not work, because if she did, she would not get some of the fees that she could get. So not only, like, I just wanted to add, while I was listening to you, it was just like a memory came back to me, how she was calling me and telling me all about the process that she had, and how frustrating and how uncomfortable her life was during that time.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And remember the example that I just gave you of Jennifer Harris who sued FedEx?
Yes.
The other reason I am not a fan of lawsuits is because it's all public. All of this is on the internet. So it
Right.
shows up in a background check. She didn't make enough money to retire for the rest of her life. So eventually she's going to have to re-enter the workforce. And when
Right.
she does that, who's going to hire her? Knowing
Oh,
that she sued FedEx and is somebody who collects information. In your friend's case, that's heartbreaking. I mean,
right.
it's heartbreaking that, she had to go through the devastation to her life and career that so many people find themselves in when they are up against, you're really up against an empire. You are David
Yes.
against a Goliath.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that.
Hi,
Hi, Claire.
my hand raising is not working, but I just want to say Crystal is very
Oh,
everybody's conversation.
Jackie's a cat person too, Claire.
Yes.
Learning a lot of good tips by you, by the way, Jack.
Aw.
Oh, I have.
In all seriousness, I mean, thank you so much for sharing your story and writing, like using it as a fuel to help billions of people all over the world with their not only work toxicities or toxicities that could lead to a lawsuit or escalate. Sorry, you were going to say something about your cat, Jackie. I didn't want to.
Oh, no, I love cats. I love all animals. In fact, I run outside with peanuts and I feed the crows, the rabbits, the squirrels, but I have cats too. And, sometimes when I'm doing a discussion like this, one of the cats will jump on my shoulder, then climb onto my desk, and then everybody's looking at the cat's butt.
Yeah, I'm glad she didn't do that right now.
That was like a COVID moment. That happened
Yes.
a lot.
Yes.
During a serious conversation too.
Yes.
I would say, Jackie, I had a question for you in terms of, I think everyone who shared their story here, and you having the courage to like write like a whole book about it and be speaking about it and consulting people, employees and companies to do better. How do we live in a future where we're not, and every single story that everyone has shared has been every single day job I probably have worked has some quality like that, toxic quality, or you're feeling like you're having to be Sherlock Holmes instead of just be an admin worker or a retail worker. And you're like, and also similar to Dawn, I'm in the film industry that doesn't pay regularly. So you work your corporate jobs and you're I've worked all kinds of corporate jobs, from food service to retail to admin to temp to permanent. And in various industries, I'm just questioning, like, are we ever going to see a future in labors and industries where we're not having to be psyops and detectives and CIA agents veiled as day job workers? And also some of the things I've gone through in my day jobs that are toxic are like the recruit and mobbing spun narratives. Like they're not things that could be necessarily suable yet, but they're in situations like what you tell a worker like me and like others who are in this toxic, anxious position every day. Like you're like, all right, this is the machine. Nothing I say is ever going to be real. I can never persuade anyone of power to believe my stories and experiences and my side is real. Everyone goes back to junior high school around you. You know what I mean? Then there's like low grade gaslighting and manipulative tactics so that you can be in meetings where you have to concede. You have to concede in order for the conflict to not escalate. So you can work and be in a more mentally toxic, harassing kind of situation. And maybe if it wasn't harassing, it's just you're stuck in a rock in a hard place. Like, what kind of advice would you give anybody we all have to work a day job. Not all of us are the 1%ers who could just live, like a Kardashian or Hilton or anything like that. Not to say they don't work hard, they're not entrepreneurs, but they came from a different, their place to home is different than where we are all at. Right. And I'm not class resentful or anything, but I'm just saying, for normal, regular women like me.
Yes.
What can we do to just like feel like when we go to workplace, is there even a healthy workplace anymore? Like, is there a healthy workplace?
I'll tell you the number one thing that I encourage every person to do, okay, is to read this book. Okay. So number one, you start recognizing the signs that you're in trouble. Okay. And number two, to learn how to protect yourself so that you can go into every job hoping for the best, but preparing from day one for the worst. And if you develop that mentality and you know how to spot the signs and see the signs, and you know how to document it without it being confrontational, one of the biggest mistakes I see so many people making when they're in these toxic environments, and it's not because it's their fault. It's because you're actually sustaining damage to your mental health. So you're not able to think at the same level that you would if everything was normal. Does that make sense?
Amen to that. Amen to that. Yes.
Your mental health is being damaged. And so when you're experiencing these and you finally get to that explosive point, you're sending an email that is so inflammatory and so combative, they use it against you. So I'll give you an example. There is a stereotype that is tied to Black women in the workplace, and that's called the angry Black woman, okay? And so companies default to that stereotype about us. They say we're not approachable. If we don't smile enough, then we look angry. If we smile too much, then, we're not adding value. And, I had one person say to me, because I thought, okay, everybody says I look angry, so I've got to smile all the time, okay? So I'm walking around, I'm smiling, I'm cheerful, even though I'm being targeted every day. And, my leader got so annoyed with me that she called me into her office and she said, "You're walking around here like everything is rainbows, bubblegum, and unicorns. Don't you have work?" Yes.
Oh
So
my goodness.
in a toxic workplace, you are in a lose-lose situation. But if you are documenting and you know how to send those emails and you take the emotion out of it, and I give you templates for every scenario in my book to help you so that you can focus on setting this company up, but the leader not realizing that what you're doing is setting them up because of the calm, nice way that you're writing this email, then you are going to be more successful in collecting the evidence you need. I'll give you an example. I've gotten folks, including my own daughter, 6-figure settlements in a 7-month window of time, okay? Because she learned from her mom how to send those emails every time these things are occurring, but to do it in a way that they don't see it as a threat or they don't see it as she's collecting evidence. And so if you can master that skill, you can protect yourself so that when you're ready to walk away, you've got what you need to do it on your own terms by motivating the people at the higher level, because I don't deal with the minions, okay? Minions protect each other. They all cover each other's backs, okay? But they never expect you to jump to that higher level. So when I go after a company, I've got all of this evidence that I've accumulated, and then we jump over everybody's head, and we don't just send it to one person. We send it to the CEO, the CIO, the COO, the CFO. Everybody in the C-suite gets it. Everybody in the VP level gets it. Everybody at the parent company gets it. There's a board of directors. They get it too. And we send it in the middle of the night. And everybody, including the toxic leaders, they are included because you want your toxic leaders to see what you've done. There is nothing that stops those toxic leaders in their tracks faster than realizing what you've sent, how detailed it is, and how far up the chain that you've sent it, and how widespread you've sent it. So everybody and their cousin now knows what this leader is doing. That leader's mentality shifts and they stop attacking you and they start worrying about, okay, guys, we got to get our story straight. We got to get this, that. What do you think she has on us? And as they start reading, they realize she has a lot. And that's how you get the toxic leaders to back off of you so you can stay in your job before they successfully issue that PIP, which is a termination warning sign. Okay, you get a PIP, you can guarantee you're going to be terminated within 30 to 60 days. Most times it's 30 days, okay? They stop worrying about what they're doing to set you up and now worrying about how to protect their income because now they're worried. Does that make sense?
Well, no, it makes a lot of sense. And I think, we're in a work culture. I can't speak for other countries, but in America where, we're learning how to protect ourselves so much. We're like maybe coming, like you were saying, this like the over Pollyanna kind of thing to overcompensate. For me, it's like feeling super paranoid. You know what I mean? That you're not like yourself at work sometimes as a result of some of these uncomfortable conversations that come out of like nowhere sometimes. Like there was one financial job I worked that had to let me go because I wore flip-flops and I was traveling to LA. It was like the LA County. And this was during Asian hate. So I was also assaulted after work, after the training there, for wearing a mask. This is in Irvine, California. And then I'm going back to work, you know what I mean? Because that's where the training happens. And then I returned back to like Seattle for the rest of my work shift, right? Before they told me like I wore flip-flops. And I said, that's not a fireable offense. Because of the fact no one in a financial office is walking past the front desk girl and checking if I'm wearing heels, especially if I'm on a business trip. So some of this stuff, Jackie, is kind of just like really nothing. I have like tons of stories from artists that have to work like flipping burger jobs because it's flexible for their auditions, or models that have to work retail at a makeup counter, or whatever, you know what I mean? Some of these jobs we're not really at an office where we can email. I mean, we do have company emails at some of those jobs, but I know people on those levels where they don't have money, like they don't have money to fight anyone. They can't even like talk to a lawyer pro bono or even have the knowledge to do that. So for people in those situations, how do we protect ourselves where we're minimum wage workers? We know the signs. We're like even more smarter than the person that started the business because we have to cover our asses so much, right? And at the same time, we live in a fire happy culture in whatever industry we're working in. Like, for me, even my resume has to bounce around a bit because that felt like the conceding. I'm like, all right, well, I can't persuade them that my experiences are logical and real because they don't work on logic. So I guess I'm going to have to find another job again and a re-uproot, which doesn't create a lot of financial stability. So I've worked all sorts of jobs as a struggling artist over the years and an independent artist over the years. And I've met a lot of people in those industries, retail or admin or high level, white collar, blue collar, all sorts of people. And they all talk to me about this very thing. They're like, well, can't afford a lawyer, not really going to do a lawsuit. I just want to work a job. All right, I'm getting fired over like farting because the district manager passed me and I didn't click my heels in time. It's like always really weird, superficial stuff they get let go for, or they have to quit again. And then they get at interviews like, yeah, let me come up with another reason why I had to change my job. No, I'm really not flaky. I swear I'm not flaky. So on that level, that bedrock, which a lot of people are working from right now, and in a fragile economy right now, what can we do? We know the signs now. What does that employee do? And especially in the retail food service or bartending type of jobs, how do they send an email or not send it? Like, what would you tell them to do in that kind of situation?
So remember what I said, during this conversation. The employer does not have to prove that they're innocent. You have to prove that they're guilty. And the only way that you can do that is with evidence. Now, here's the thing. In my book, I talk about one-party consent states. Do you know what a one-party consent state is?
Yes.
Tell me what you think it is.
I know in Washington, it's a two-party consent state in the sense that I can't record, like if this was a work call or something, Zoom meeting, I can't record it unless all of you guys gave me consent. It has to be two-party consent. Yes. I know that there's other states that don't have that. They don't have two-party consent. I don't know what those states are, but I know that they have that.
So in my book, I actually cover one-party consent states. And I give you a list of the states that are not one party, okay? But we love one-party consent states. So if any of your friends or colleagues are in one-party consent states, they should be going out. I make all of my clients in one-party consent states get this, okay? This is a recording pen. It looks like a pen, it writes like a pen, it acts like a pen. It doesn't raise any suspicions, but when you push this, it starts recording and it's got a good high quality, okay? And so these recordings in one-party consent states make valuable evidence. And this one is about $16 at Office Max or Office Depot. And so that would be the first question your colleagues should be asking themselves. Am I in a one-party consent state? Now, the rules are tricky if you are a remote employee or a hybrid employee, and you are having a conversation where that person is not in that one-party consent state with you. So for example, if I'm in Colorado, which I am, Colorado is a one-party consent state, but the person that I'm talking to on the phone or via Slack or Zoom or Teams or whatever is in Florida or California, for example, I could not legally utilize that recording method because it would actually be against federal law and state law as well. So I never recommend that in remote employees or employees that are hybrid that can't be 100% sure that this conversation is happening with both of you in a one-party consent state. I don't recommend you go that route because employers are smart. They have legal counsel, okay, that knows the rules for recording. And so you can say, well, I recognize, I know that my boss was at home when we had our Zoom meeting. because, she lives in Texas. And that lawyer will say, yeah, she lives in Texas, but during this call, she was on vacation in Florida. So you illegally recorded her, and you've told us you've got this recording. So we're going to report you to the FBI. So they can turn that leverage against you. Okay. So that is something that your folks, your colleagues are going to want to ask themselves. Am I in the same space with this person that I want to record? If we're together, then absolutely, this is great. We're collecting evidence in an easy way where you're not having to send emails, you're not having to document because you're recording the actual conversation. Okay, that's one thing I would suggest. If they are not in a one-party consent state, and that's something that they cannot do, okay, then the next thing you do is you're communicating in some way, shape, or fashion with this toxic leader who's targeting you. Now, if the toxic leader doesn't like email, oftentimes they will have conversations via Zoom or Skype or Slack or Teams.
Even text, I've seen.
And text messages, those are great.
Save those.
You save those text messages, you save those team messages. Now, IT has gotten smart as well. And so they have now created ways to see if you are forwarding emails to yourself. Like if you're trying to send emails to your personal email, they can catch you on that. If you're trying to download emails or documents onto a flash drive, they can tell. So what a lot of my clients will do instead is they will take that smartphone and turn it sideways and take a full picture of their screen. You have to make sure the full email's in there. And if it's a long email, you've got to make sure you get every piece of that email. So it may take you 5 pictures to get the whole email, but you want to take a picture of whatever it is, the evidence that you're collecting, and it's got to be full with no parts cut off on the sides. And if it's a long email, you've got to take enough pictures to capture that whole email. But then that is invaluable evidence. And there's no way for IT to track that because you're doing it from your phone. Make sense?
Okay.
So those are ways. Remember, it's all about evidence, because without evidence, it's a he said, she said, and they don't have to prove that they're innocent. You have to prove that they're guilty. And the only way that you can do that is with evidence. Now, if you show a company that you've collected enough evidence, they will buy you your silence. They will buy your silence with that hush money. Okay? They will, because they've got deep pockets and they've got insurance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. Are you going to read this book?
Yes.
Very good.
Absolutely.
After you read it, message me on LinkedIn so that we can get on a Zoom call and talk about it and how you can apply those strategies.
I love that you're on LinkedIn too, because LinkedIn is finally becoming more of an honest place about work culture.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes. There are
many
people.
evangelists on there
Yes.
now. I love seeing this.
I was so amazed when I stumbled across LinkedIn because, I'm probably about to give my age away right now. But back in the day, I thought LinkedIn was about resumes and finding jobs.
Right.
And so when I stumbled across LinkedIn after I wrote my Hush Money series, and I'm a self-published author, I didn't really know what to do with these books because I'm not a writer by trade. My background is in finance. I didn't know the first thing about writing a book. And then once I did it, and there's all kinds of flaws in that book because I'm not a professional writer. But even still, after 7 months, it became an international best-selling and award-winning book after Forbes did a feature story on this little self-published book that I sold from the trunk of my car because I was homeless at the time. And it's just been crazy since then. But, I can tell you that I wouldn't have found Forbes if I didn't find LinkedIn. And when I got on LinkedIn, it was all the people there that elevated my work. Now, but here's the interesting thing. no one would give me the time of day on LinkedIn when I first showed up. And, I'm trying to get people interested in me and my stories and what I experienced. And I couldn't get anyone to engage with me. It was very, very difficult. But there was one man, his name was Evan Burkhead. He is a white man out of all the people on LinkedIn. This one white man, he said, I'll read your book. And I was just flabbergasted. I couldn't believe that I finally got somebody interested in reading my book. And he read Hush Money. And the review that he wrote after he read it was so incredible. Amazon refused to publish it. They would not publish his review. No matter how many times he tried to revise it, they would not publish it. But LinkedIn saw his review, and then others said, okay, we'll take a chance. And that's how I got to the point that I am right now. But it started with that one man, Evan Burkhead.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we've run out of time, but Jacquie, I want to thank you so much for being our guest today. You've given us so much insight. For me, like I said, I wish I had met you 2 years ago.
I wish we had met too. I would have loved to help you.
But thank you so much. Thank you again. And Claire, for being here. I totally appreciate you being here, and for your inspiration and for your questions that are thoughtful.
Mhm.
Thank you, of course, to Priscilla, my partner. I'm just so grateful that, despite everything that's happening in the workplace, that we are warriors. We are moving through to make some change. And sometimes it seems like, like Claire said, when are we going to get to the point that we don't have to be detectives? But
Yes.
we do have to be our own advocates for sure. But it's always so wonderful and inspiring to meet others that have that same warrior spirit. So thank you
Yes.
so much. I appreciate you all.
A picture of us all, because this came at the right
Oh,
place at the right time.
sure, if you want to.
And I would also say, I finally got to the point where I can read my own books. After I wrote Hush Money, I couldn't go back and read what I wrote, and I tried a couple of live events, and I would get to maybe about chapter 8, and then I would just be bawling, and I would have to cancel the
Right.
whole live event. But I'm now at a point where I can actually read my own work and actually get through it. And the way that I did it was I created various character voices for the people that I'm talking about in the book to, make it a little more joyful for me,
Right.
so that it doesn't immerse me 100% in the trauma. So if you ever
Absolutely.
do want to do a book club on one of my books, want to do a book
Yeah.
reading, I would be open to doing that.
Wonderful. Thank
Yeah,
you
I
so
can read
much.
my work now.
Yay. That's healing.
Yes, it is healing.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
All right. Well, 3, 2, and 1. I'll do one more for safety. As they say in film, one more for safety, right?
Yeah.
That's a good way. All right. All right. And 3, 2, and 1.
Thanks, Claire.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Jacquie. Again.
Thank you.